Hello, hello, hello. This is Misty Magdalena Grace with the new and improved version of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, where we talk about spirituality, psychedelics, plant medicine, microdosing, and really that journey within to finding your best innate wisdom, to your best health, your best wealth through all sorts of inner child healing, trauma release, grief recovery, overcoming addictions, and working with the mind, the body, and spirit. So go ahead, leave a review, subscribe, download. We look forward to your feedback. Thanks for tuning in today. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Again, as you heard from the intro, I'm Magdalena. I'm the host of this show and super excited to have an amazing international, as of, well, right now where she's at is in Bali, guest. If you've never tuned in before, I always like to welcome first-time guests. If you are on the live, and I know we have a few people that are planning on attending today, feel free to comment below, #live, city, state, country, where you're tuning in from. As well as if you're on the replay later, you can do #replay, city, state, country, where you're tuning in from. And if you are here on the live, you can ask questions of my guests. So I love doing these shows live for that purpose. But otherwise, just grab a notebook, grab a cup of coffee, tea, wine, whichever time zone you are in right now. And hopefully you have heard of Kambo before. If not, this medicine impacted my life the deepest out of any medicine I've worked with from a scientific, but also a spiritual perspective. So I'm going to go ahead without further ado, because I know we have a schedule to keep. I'm going to invite you in, Caitlin. I am so excited to have you here all the way from Bali. Thank you for being here today.
It is my greatest pleasure to talk about my favorite topic with one of my favorite people. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Beautiful. We have Linda Murphy live from Colorado Springs. Thanks, Linda, for tuning in. Super excited at LinkedIn crowd. And so I met Caitlin actually. I always say, gosh, I wish I would have met her sooner, but it's always in perfect and divine timing. I met Caitlin through a referral. And we were both in San Diego, and I had been served for about 2 years with Kambo and helping me with trauma, addiction, grief, just cleansing the body of a lot of stuff. And so when I found Caitlin and I saw how passionate she was about the science, about safety, doing no harm with these medicines, and also certified people, I was like, oh my gosh, sign me up. I know you have a vast background in nutraceuticals. You've served, I think, thousands of people with this amazing frog medicine. You're the founder of Medicine Frog Kambo, and you've also done a lot of podcasts. So I'm going to let you share your story and your journey with Kambo and anything you want to share with our audience today.
Sure. I think like many other practitioners out there, my journey with this medicine is a very personal one. And I know of a lot of people who are now serving this medicine that were deeply impacted in their own healing journeys with it. And that's part of what inspires us to then continue and make this medicine available to our communities and other people out there in the world that need support. So this medicine came into my life around 2015, I believe. And I was 25 or so, and I was a very dedicated psychonaut. So I had a lot of experience drinking ayahuasca and other psychedelics. Excuse me. And it was around the time that this medicine came into my life, right when I was starting to realize that I had been afflicted with a chronic illness my whole life. Now, I know that sounds crazy. Like, well, how could you not know that you have a chronic illness? Well, the thing is, when you're born sick, you don't actually know what it feels like to feel healthy. And so I didn't have that contrast to really know how much I was failing to thrive and struggling with things like chronic fatigue and anxiety and depression and pain and skin issues and food allergies and infections and things like that. But I had no idea. And I kind of just came into Kambo out of curiosity because I was a phase in my life where I was very experimental with a lot of these modalities. And it started to improve my physical and emotional health in a way that was unexpected. And started to give me some of that contrast to really notice and be aware of how sick my baseline truly was. And later, I, revealed kind of more clinical labels to explain, to other people what afflictions I had, such as Lyme disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, PTSD,
Mhm.
food sensitivities, all sorts of other, chronic infections or SIBO, fibromyalgia, ankylosing spondylitis, interstitial cystitis, like really just a bunch of different symptoms to describe somebody who had massive immune dysregulation and dysfunction
Mm.
and chronic inflammation. So yeah, Kambo really, I say it really sought me out more than me seeking it out. It really kind of grabbed the hold of me and unexpectedly became so instrumental in my own healing process and moving towards the full vitality that I didn't even know was possible. That's part of why I'm so passionate about working with people with chronic illness, because I find that this medicine is just so incredibly effective for a lot of people struggling with those afflictions. So then I started self administering because back in the day, there was not a lot of people doing this. There was few and far between. It was very niche. It was very bizarre and weird, and there wasn't really access to trainings or education or even facts on this medicine.
Mm.
So me and my buddy, we were like self-administering, and then next thing I know, like my roommate or my friend is like, well, could you serve me? And I'm like, yeah, I guess why not, we can do it together. And then more people started asking. And then next thing I knew, I was serving strangers. And next thing I knew, they were paying me. And I literally had served like probably 100 times or so before getting actual training. This is like what not to do. Don't do it like I did. But I realized I was like, okay, I seem to have found myself in kind of a practitioner role, but I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I need training. So then I went in and did a formal certification program, and it just exploded once I got home, and it never slowed
Mm.
down. And to this day, it hasn't slowed down. And in that way, I really feel like it's not something that I sought out, but it's something that I fell into and developed this really passionate and deep relationship with this substance. And it's brought so much beauty to my life. And I'm just so grateful to be able to live my passion and my purpose every day and to have access to this medicine, and very much still have it as a ally in my journey. When I have relapses or infections or need spiritual release, it's always there for me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I'm so grateful. That's profound. That's a lot of sickness and illness to navigate and work through. And having met you, I would have never known or guessed that you had embodied all of that. So I think for anybody who's joining us, by the way, if you're just joining us, I saw some new eyeballs pop up on the screen. Go ahead and comment below #live city and state where you're tuning in from. That's the benefit of joining us on the live show. We want to acknowledge you. And later you can ask questions if you have any questions for our guests today. Since we may have brand new people both on my podcast who I can't believe they haven't heard about it because I've been talking about it. But if they haven't ever heard of Kambo, maybe explain first what it is, and then I'd love to dive into the science and the health benefits.
Yeah, I've gotten good at the elevator pitch at this point. So, Kambo is a traditional Amazonian medicine that comes from the skin secretion of a very specific species of tree frog. The Latin binomial name is Phylomedusa bicolor, but it has some common names such as the giant monkey frog or giant waxy tree frog. There's kind of a number of different names. And the skin secretion is applied through superficial burns made on the skin, usually the arm, but you can really put it all sorts of places on the body. And within seconds, really, or a minute, there's all these bioactive peptides that are contained in the secretion that are then entering the system and having these quite profound biological effects. And this process induces things like nausea, vomiting, sweating, um, changes in the nervous system, in immunomodulation, smooth muscle contraction, things like that. And they are very powerful, even in such small amounts that just go through the burn in your skin. And so the experience is about 30 minutes or so of having these intense sensations. I don't want to say unpleasant because that's a judgment, but definitely really strong, intense sensations. And it usually is accompanied by vomiting or diarrhea, and discomfort. But in the Amazon, the indigenous communities that use this medicine have used it for centuries, if not longer. It's a bit unclear on the history because it's all kind of word of mouth. But you would use it for increasing their vitality and endurance and stamina, as well as perceptual acuity, especially before long multi-day hunts or warfare. There was a lot of conflicts amongst different tribal communities, and still is, frankly. But yeah, they would use it as warrior medicine, which is part of why I think it attracts people that are showing up in the world to like bring that kind of young energy of like, yeah, I'm here to fight for what's right. And they would also use it as a medicine, for things like malaria, snake bites, something called panema, which is the equivalent of like a dark cloud of bad luck or funk, dirty funk. So if someone's getting a bit lazy or depressed, you just clear that panema with Kambo. Um, and modern day now, there's a tremendous amount of more Western applications. Turns out it's actually really valuable for a number of physical illnesses and psychological afflictions that they don't really so much have in the jungle. And that's why it's important to, I think, adapt the application methods to meet the needs of working with people that have these type of conditions, because this is just simply not part of the historical use of Kambo in the jungle. And so we have to innovate, while honoring the origins of the medicine. We do have to allow it to evolve and adapt based on how it's moving through the world in this more globalized life that we live in.
Yeah, I so agree with you. To me, I'm also very passionate about the safety first, not just with Kambo, but with serving plant medicine and what I've seen in America and how people think I'm just going to go to Peru, have ayahuasca, come back, and life's going to be normal and it's going to be great, and fairy tales and daisies and tulips and all of that. And I'm like, but this is the concrete jungle, okay? We have different triggers. Granted, we don't have things that can maybe kill you just by touching you, but there's so much difference, and that's why it's important to work with a skilled Kambo practitioner. And I guess before we get to that part of it, maybe explain some of the science and the peptides. Like, why does this help support immune system? Why does this help with mental health? Why does this help with all of the things that you talked about?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a lot of this is speculation and theoretical at this point. Um, even though people love to tout like, oh, there's so much science behind Kambo, there really isn't. There is some limited research on the individual peptides that have been identified in Kambo, but there's pretty much non-existent research on Kambo itself in humans, administered through the skin, which is how people are taking it. So we're kind of largely relying on like speculation and anecdotal evidence, because obviously there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people and practitioners as well. So we know what we see as far as the outcome and the benefits for people. We just don't totally know why. But
Yeah.
we do know that, some of the peptides have really potent opioid effect that seems to modulate vagal nerve function, which is really crucial for immune modulation, inflammatory processes. I mean, all sorts of things, right? The nervous system is so central to all these different processes downstream in our physiology. So there's effects on the nervous system, there's cardiovascular effects, and there's some there's some speculation that there could be increased vascular permeability as a result of some of these peptides, which basically has implications around, is the blood-brain barrier permeability being affected? And if so, could that allow for peptides to enter the brain that normally wouldn't have access to the brain? Or could this be something to look at to inspire novel medications that are able to reach through the blood-brain barrier and things like that? There's also highly antimicrobial aspects of some of the peptides, such as the dermaceptins, where they're just decimating organisms on contact, things like bacteria, fungi, viruses, protozoa like malaria. And they have investigated these dermaceptins also against cancer cells, but also things like Candida albicans, herpes simplex 2, gonorrhea, chlamydia, um, multi-drug resistant staph, E. coli, salmonella, things like that. So there is so much complexity in all these nuanced, peptides. And there's so many of the peptides as well. Like from my research in the literature, I've identified at least 27 different analogs. And so it's really quite complicated and unstandardizable to really just isolate it to one compound, which is, what conventional medicine aims to do a lot of time when you take something through drug development. And because of that, Kambo is just so much more nuanced and complicated than the typical paradigm in medicine, which I think adds to the disinterest of studying it or trying to patent it or create a synthetic version or whatnot, because it's just so challenging.
Yeah. Well, your testimonial alone and just my own journey with my autoimmune disease. I had leaky gut, candida, probably most of my childhood, undiagnosable IBS, more than likely, SIBO, all of it. Been there, done that. I'd love to actually talk about, since I've shared a lot of my passion about the gut brain, the heart brain, and the head brain, this does so much for the gut microbiome, and that is so, so important for all disease, right? So I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that and Kambo and how it helps with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just back up a bit, because really a lot of my core teaching and understanding of medicine comes from a deep understanding of the importance in psychology and the nervous system in healing these autoimmune or chronic conditions, or really any disease. Prior to really getting into Kambo, I specialized in psychedelics as novel approaches to autoimmune conditions. And a lot of that is due to the neurological effects and mechanisms of action, because our gut and our heart, are innervated with all these neurons, all these nervous system cells that are connected to our nervous system. And there's actually more neurons in your gastrointestinal system, or as we call the enteric nervous system, than there are in your spinal cord. And some people have started to kind of get privy to the connection between like the gut and the brain, but it really is mediated a lot through the nervous system, which is deeply integrated into your entire intestinal lining and gastrointestinal tract, and is very interactive with your microbiome, which are the population and ecosystem of microorganisms that are living in your gut, but not even just in your gut. Like there's microorganisms all over on our skin and our noses, on our eyes and our genitals. Like they're everywhere, and they play these really foundational roles in extracting nutrients, in modulating the immune response, in modulating metabolism, modulating inflammation and gastric motility, and all sorts of different things, making neurotransmitters. A lot of microbiome bacteria actually make neurotransmitters, and most of it is made in your gut by microorganisms, not necessarily in your brain. And of course, that can affect our mood, our psychology, the way we view the world, the story we tell about our life and how we feel about it, the feelings we have about other people in our lives, whether we want to eat that cake or not. Like they're running the show. And so then circling back, part of why I think Kambo is so effective for these autoimmune tendencies in people, or like I said, any disease state, is because it really targets the multifaceted systems that are responsible for being the core central modulators of all these downstream events in the body. So, in particular, if you look at what combo affects the most strongly, right? The nervous system, the gastrointestinal system, and the cardiovascular system. What do all of those things have in common? They all are considered to be brains in a way. We've talked about the gut being the second brain, and also the heart being its own brain. And so all of them have bundles of nervous system tissue, and they're all integrated and connected with each other. And so I think Kambo gets down to the fundamental area that needs correction and regulation and modulation, which is the nervous system. And so much of our nervous system health or state of being is contingent upon our psycho-spiritual happiness, our health, our sense of peace, our sense of alignment, our sense of purpose, our trauma. Um, are we vigilant? Are we searching for a threat? Do we trust? Do we feel safe? And so, if we can address those things through physiology, such as peptides, and combining that with the ritualistic container where you can invite in consciousness medicine, where your intention is actually changing your physiology,
Hmm.
you're creating a supercharged environment to recalibrate the nervous system on mind body spirit level. And that is what's missing from a lot of these conventional treatments for people. And that's what seems to work. And so I think Kambo is such a multifaceted medicine that really addresses all the components that are necessary to realign someone physiologically, emotionally, and spiritually in a way that is absolutely necessary to really create profound, lasting change.
I love it. Beautiful. I wrote that down. I never really thought of it as consciousness medicine. And you talked about the psycho spiritual. I'd like to tap into that a little bit. But before I do, guys, if you're just joining us, I do invite you to please hit the share button. Sharing is caring. If you're able to, depending on where you're streaming this live, some of the places I'm streaming doesn't allow for that, but feel free to share. You never know, especially with December. I wanted Caitlin to be on this month because this is a month where a lot of people struggle with more grief, more challenges, more health issues, and quite honestly, holidays for some people are depressing. And so depression, suicide is on the rise. All of that. So sharing might just save a life. I know for me personally, when I found Kambo, I had already done some plant medicine, but I was still addicted to alcohol. I was still struggling with my autoimmune disease numbers. I was still struggling in life, just period. Struggled with trust. A lot of the things you said, actually, and I didn't even know that Kambo would help with all of that. So I'm so glad that I felt the call. So it was 2 years ago this month. Actually, it's my frog anniversary when I first met and sat with Kambo, and ever since then, it's been part of my self-care plan. I do this now more than acupuncture, honestly, just because it does so much. I want to acknowledge. Yay, Laura is here. I think that's your first name, Red Heart 11TX. And then we have Philip from Silicon Valley. If you're joining us, I do like to acknowledge you on the live. If you can share your name, #live, and city and state where you're tuning in from. So with that being said, let's go back to the psycho-spiritual, setting an intention in ceremony. Maybe speak more to that and why that works so well with Kambo.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a Western adaptation to have this ritualistic container. That's not something that you actually typically see in the jungle. People are under a false impression that there's this rich shamanic tradition with Kambo, and that's just not the case. We've kind of added that and adapted that in the more modern context, which I think is wonderful and actually adds so much value to the experience. But yes, okay, there's the physiological potency of the peptides themselves, and yes, they can help disrupt patterns that we're stuck in and give us some space in that way. But more importantly, I think is the ritualistic intention of the container. And this is why set and setting is so crucial, because someone might be robbed of getting value out of their Kambo experience if the set and setting or the invitation to have a clear intention is not curated. And if you look at the most widely studied intervention in all of science and medicine, and that's the placebo effect, right? And a lot of times people discount it as this obstacle of like, oh, well, that's just, skews the data. And then we have to, have this other set of subjects to account for this like stupid, annoying phenomenon. But really, we're not like looking at what what is going on there. And it's actually quite amazing that purely the intention to get better, to take a pill, to receive a fake saline injection, whatever it may be, if the person thinks that they are receiving some sort of treatment, their their body actually gets better to some extent. And that's what consciousness medicine is. It's like the intention and the opportunity to observe an act that demonstrates that intention and really solidifies it, creates this magical phenomena where the body actually has measurable ability to heal, or maybe perhaps it's the psyche, depending on what you're looking at. That's freaking crazy. And so I think we really need to like utilize that. And like I said, I call it consciousness medicine, because when you decide, when you make a choice that you would like to demonstrate to yourself that you have worth, that you have value, that you want to invest in yourself, and that you think that you are worthy of healing, when you go through the ritualistic process of something like Kambo, or it could be doing yoga or cooking a meal for yourself, it doesn't really matter, taking a supplement, when you create that routine or that act, you are ultimately creating a sacred container for consciousness medicine to be cultivated. And you add the actual physiological potency of Kambo and the peptides. Plus, there a lot of people believe, including myself, that there is an intelligent spirit behind the medicine as well. But even if you only believe in the peptides themselves, at the least you can believe in your own power, because that is scientifically validated. And so I think when you combine these peptides with a container, um, and you're utilizing that consciousness medicine, you're inviting that person to articulate their intention out loud so that they've heard them say it to themselves and it's no longer ambiguous. That is so, so powerful. And I know in our training, and something I preach a lot, is that really it's the set and setting. And the Kambo itself just provides a little bit of like rocket fuel to like let that fire under your ass, so that you really have an opportunity to witness yourself going through a process that is all about being dedicated to your healing.
Amen. Yeah, that's why I love offering Kambo up in group ceremony now too, because when you have that collective consciousness and working together, it's a beautiful space. I do have some questions. I'd like to get to those, Caitlin, if you don't mind. And this was perfect. Philip teed us up perfectly. He asked, "What is a typical Kambo dosing? What's maximum? How is it applied? How is it kept fresh for how long?" So you got some work cut out for you there.
Yeah. So I want to say that there really isn't a typical Kambo dosing. For one, um, the secretions of the frogs is all over the map. Like the potency, the peptide composition. we don't even really understand how similar one individual frog from another is, and that is something that working on with UCSD so that we get an understanding of if there's any consistency between these frogs. So one, the potency is going to be very different. Also, the sensitivity of an individual can also range significantly, even day to day. Some areas of my life I'm going to be more sensitive, and others I'm going to be kind of more able to take higher doses. So there's so much variance there. And also the practitioner's style and method and philosophy is something to consider as well. Personally, I like to work with really low doses and emphasize the container and the intentionality, because I think it gets better results. I think it also lowers risks that can be associated with Kambo, and it is more conservative with a precious substance that is finite, is limited, and also comes from a living, breathing being. So for me, I like to work with low doses. On a first timer, typically I'm not going above 3 points. Um, and honestly, probably in 40% of my first timers, I'm doing a test point and they're good with that. They're having a full purgative experience. And I find that the more in the parasympathetic response the person is, the more safe and grounded and open they feel, the less medicine they really need. Now, some people like to use high doses, and if they're doing men's work or something that's more yang. That's fine. That's just not my style, and so it really depends on the practitioner and the person and their individual needs and their goals. And it's also worth noting too that the surface area of the burn size is ultimately what dictates how much of the peptides go in. So, what size burn stick is somebody using? So a dot is not a dot is not a dot. If your friend gets 9 points, that might not be nearly as strong of an experience as your other friend who's getting 2 points. And also the area of the body. If you put 2 points on the back of the neck, that's not the same as putting 2 points on the lower leg. So it's quite complex, and that's part of what makes it a bit more of an art than a science. So hopefully that answers the first question. Can you remind me what the other questions are? Okay. Yeah. Okay, what is the maximum? Yeah, I mean, again, it's like I would ask myself, why are we putting more than 8 to 10 points on people? And is that necessary? Um, and then one more time, Magdalena, because I didn't read the next question. You're on mute.
I didn't realize that. So you did ask another question that I think would be good to segue to, and then we'll come back. He doesn't know what a point is. I think he's never
Ah,
seen Kambo before. So maybe explain what a point is a little bit. And he asked also what is a burn. And that's also, Philip, just so you know, I also put my website on the screen right now. So if you wanted to go there, you could actually see pictures of dots, points, whatever you want to call it, on a person's arm. So go to combohealing.now.site if you want to, Philip. But I'll let you explain.
yeah, so typically you'll use like a small vine, or some people will use an incense, and then you'll make a very superficial burn on the skin. And so what happens is you have a tiny little open circle on your skin, and then the actual secretion it's usually um, dried like a crystalline type of resin, because all of the secretions being collected from wild caught frogs. They're not being brought from the Amazon and farmed or anything like that. They're all in their native habitat, and so you collect their secretion, which is like this milky, gooey substance, and then you put it on like a bamboo pallet, and then once it dries, it's like crystalline, and it's very shelf stable. And to our knowledge, it doesn't really go bad or degrade once it's dried on that stick. And then when you're ready to use it, maybe you received a shipment from Peru or whatever, you reconstitute it with water, and then you'll form these little boogery blobs, and those boogery blobs are then squished onto that round little burn made on your skin, and then that's how the medicine actually enters the system. So when people say a point or a dot or a gate, they're usually referring to a burn with a blob of medicine that's been pancaked on top. Was that clear?
That was great, and I just dropped my website also. So for those of you who go there, I'm having a master class next week with our good friend Charlotte, who we're going to be talking even more. So if you can attend that master class, guys, feel free to sign up. The registration is on my website. So yeah, let's go back to his other questions, and guys, we probably got about another 10 minutes. So let's, if you have a question, now would be the time to ask it. Otherwise, I have more questions for Caitlin. We already talked about that. How is it kept fresh? For how long? And maybe if you want to share where people can they get this frog medicine? I think that's an important share too.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there's places online that you can get it, but please don't buy it yourself and try to self-administer. This is not mushrooms. I'm all for people buying mushrooms, eating them with their friends, putting on a good playlist. So it's not that I feel like every medicine needs to be radically controlled, but there are some medicines that require more expertise and are different risks than others. And this is not a medicine that is a DIY. You really should not be self-administering without proper training, because there's things that you don't know that you don't know, and there's some safety things that are not obvious, and you have to actually be trained in them to be aware of them. And so yeah, please, please, please work with a qualified practitioner who has substantial training, um, perhaps is CPR certified, has experience, and ask them what safety protocols that they have in place. Do they administer a safety test point? Do they have water drinking protocols to avoid hyponatremia, which is water toxicity and electrolyte disturbance? Do they have a protocol for fainting? Are they CPR certified? Where do they get their medicine? Do they have a personal relationship with indigenous communities? Ask all these things so that you can get a sense of this practitioner's integrity and their experience and how serious they take this process. I'll tell you, if practitioner does not ask you for your medical history, or ask you some medical questions, run. Don't work with them, because there's no reason not to do a medical questionnaire, and it could be the difference between someone living and dying, and it takes 2 minutes. So if they're not asking you about what medications you're on or what your history is with your medical and health, they're not the right choice for you or anybody, really.
Thank you. That's one of the many reasons I loved you, because you've even educated me on the proper supplements to take before, during, and after, and just that do no harm, guys, because this is medicine, and I'm probably even more extreme than you, Caitlin. I'm like, don't even DIY it with your friends and mushrooms, because I've seen the collateral damage of that on some people, because there's so much that can come up for you that if you don't understand, you can actually stagnate, and we've even talked about you can actually overdo Kambo, right? What happens if someone overdoes it? Because that'll segue into his last question.
Yeah, I mean, there is such thing as too much of a good thing, right? And Kambo is very immunogenic or immune boosting. And so if somebody's routinely using it a lot, it can put them in a hyper vigilant immune response where you start developing like rashes and new allergies and things like that. Um, but also, it appears to upregulate dopamine activity, which is part of why you're like, oh, I feel the world is brighter again, or I have all this motivation, or I have all this energy, or I'm interested in things again. But there is there's a possibility that that can push somebody towards like mania or psychosis. And a lot of the cases that I've seen in the case reports of harms with Kambo have been from people who were using Kambo, in my opinion, excessively, like multiple times a month for many months on end, and they're usually practitioners. So I think a good like goal is to like try not to use Kambo more than 12 or 13 times a year. There might be a situation where you use it more, such as if you have a chronic health condition, or if you're mostly microdosing, or if you have cancer or HIV or something intense like that. But in general, for the average person using Kambo for psychospiritual purposes, you probably don't need to be using it more than once a month. And with any substance, it's important to check in with yourself about, why am I doing this? Do I need this right now? Or is this a habit, or I'm actually using this medicine as a crutch, where when I don't feel good, or I feel out of balance, my go-to is to just have this thing fix me.
Yeah.
Or am I really feeling called that, like, I want the opportunity to, like, work on my own healing in this container, or with this medicine helping catalyze that. And only you know the answer, but it's really good to check in with yourself honestly about, what's driving me to use this medicine. Is it inspiration? Is it obligation? Is it desperation? And that can help us understand um, how much we really need something, versus maybe are impulsive around, like, using even something as sustainable and unfun as Kambo. People still do abuse it, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And you already answered this, but I thought it would be good because some people get confused. They think combo is bufo. So we already answered how often. She said 12 to 13 times a year is again and again with a practitioner. Especially, I would recommend even a practitioner that helps you with a care plan and intentions and goals and specific for something mental, physical, or spiritual. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it, but people think comparing it to bufo, so then they think it's a psychedelic. So maybe you want to clarify that.
Yeah, so Kambo is not a psychedelic. It's not a hallucinogenic substance. Um, is it more or less spiritual? Well, that's like asking, what's more spiritual, meditation or LSD? There depends on who you ask, and what the experience is. And for people with Kambo, people have deeply profound spiritual experiences, but they're
Mhm.
not going to be the same intense, mind altering firework experiences that you get when you drink ayahuasca or you do 5-MeO DMT.
Mhm.
You're going to have a spiritual experience that's mind expansive in a different way. It's perceptually very different. And I would say it's more subtle. It's more of like receiving messages in whispers. But it can be extremely catalyzing for people's lives. But yeah, you're probably not going to have an ego dissolution and dissolve into God like you would with Bufo. But some people also do Bufo, and it's traumatizing for them, and then they come out of it and they wouldn't say that was a spiritually uplifting experience. So it's like apples and oranges. So it's really hard to compare. I would say that, yeah, Kambo does have more medicinal benefits than a lot of other medicines, like psychedelic medicines, because the peptides are just so marvelously, fantastic. But I do think that anytime that you're affecting your physiology, anytime you're changing your chemistry, you are ultimately also opening up opportunities for spiritual and emotional shifts as well,
Mhm.
because our nervous system, our physiology is the machinery, is the physical mechanisms of spirituality and being alive as a spirit. So I invite you to not see those things as separate. So Kambo it's different. And it's hard to describe to someone who hasn't done it, because there really isn't anything else like it in this entire world that I'm aware of.
Amen to that. Yeah. And I know we're wrapping it up here. So thanks, guys, for all of your questions. I have just we'll put a plug in for Caitlin. Where can people find you and talk about your facilitator training that I can't say enough. It was 12 days of the best, like 12 days of Christmas for me, I would say, because it was so life changing. And now I get to serve this medicine and ceremony here in San Diego. And so if someone's interested, how do they get a hold of you? And can you tell more about that?
Yeah, I have a couple different websites. So, if you're interested in practitioner trainings, whether you're existing practitioner or you are interested in becoming a practitioner, you can go on combospecialist.com. Maybe I can write in the comments, or
Well,
someone
I
will.
was going to say, I'll put it in the show notes. So it's all put,
Perfect.
so make sure you guys know I'll be dropping it and I'll actually type it in the comments right now as well.
Easy peasy. So yeah, combospecialist.com. And then for my personal practice, that's largely based out of San Diego, though right now I'm in Indonesia. Medicine Frog Kambo is the name of that organization. And on both of those websites, you should be able to also access some informational resources that I've created. You can look at the FAQs and learn more about Kambo and what it is and what it isn't. You can also look at some of the research that I've published and pioneered, as well as other research papers. I have a whole vault that I made of Kambo related papers that you can check out and read on the existing science of the peptides. And yeah, so check it out. There's also integration and intention worksheets that are free for anybody to download. So if you're going to be doing Kambo with me or somebody else, then you can always use that to get the most out of your experience, and it's totally free to download. So yeah, be happy to connect with anybody. And I'm also on Instagram too, though I'm not the best at being active, but my handle is medicinefrogkambo.com or .com, medicinefrogkambo, sorry. So yeah, reach out, and if you have any questions, feel free to get connected.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll put all of that, what she said, guys, in the show notes. And just a reminder, I do have a masterclass next week, 12/12. It's on the new moon, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern time. So if you go to my website, kambohealing.now.site, you can sign up for and register for that there. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for being here. I know it's tomorrow in Bali, and thank you for working with my schedule and for giving us your wisdom. So guys, please hit the share button. You just never know. A lot of people haven't heard of Kambo. It's not like there's practitioners in every city, state, country, for that matter. So we so appreciate you. You're welcome, Philip. Thank you, guys. And until next time, guys, here's to your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom. Again, thank you, Caitlin, for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, download, leave a 5-star rating or review, and also please refer this to a friend you know who may benefit from this inspirational message. We hope to see you again. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or join my Facebook community. And if you are looking to manifest your best health, your best wealth by trusting your best wisdom within, please go to my website, www.microdosingforhealth.com. Again, www.microdosingforhealth.com, to quiet your mind, get into your heart,